I never imagined my daughter's birthday party would be the moment she embarrassed me in front of everyone. I had raised her with love and care, always wanting the best for her. The house, my late husband's pride and now mine, looked stunning that evening. The chandelier sparkled above us, lighting up the shiny marble floor. Lily, my daughter, insisted on having a big, fancy party for her 35th birthday. She said it matched her future status. I stood quietly near the dessert table, just watching her dance and laugh with her fancy friends and business people. She looked happy, but somehow, she didn't feel like my little girl anymore. Since marrying Nathan, a slick real estate guy, she'd changed. Her hunger for more had turned sharp. As the evening went on, Lily came over to me. She wore that fake smile I'd grown used to, the kind that never reached her eyes. She held out a shiny leather folder. "Mother," she said loudly, even though we were close enough to whisper, "everyone's here. Why not make it official tonight? You've talked about transferring the house. Let's just sign it." The room got quiet. People turned. Cameras came out. My chest tightened. I held my glass tighter. "Lily," I said calmly, "this isn't the right time." Her smile disappeared. She looked annoyed. "You always say that, but you're not getting any younger. Nathan thinks we should handle this while you're still able." Her words were sharp and cruel. My cheeks burned, but I kept my voice steady. "We'll talk about it another day," I said. The room felt heavier. Nathan stepped up behind her, his hand on her shoulder like he was silently backing her up. Then it happened. Without warning, Lily grabbed her giant birthday cake, a beautiful thing with sugar roses and smooth fondant, and shoved it right into my face. The room gasped. "You selfish old woman," she yelled. "This house should already be mine." I stood there in shock, frosting dripping down my chin, cameras clicking, people whispering. The chandelier above sparkled as if mocking me, lighting up her cold eyes. All she cared about was the house. Not the years I spent raising her. Not the nights I cried alone after losing her father. Not the effort it took to keep this family from falling apart. I wiped my face with a napkin, slowly, calmly, like I'd just spilled a drink, not had a cake thrown at me. Then I looked at her and said, softly but clearly, "You'll get what's yours when the time is right, Lily." She scoffed. "And when is that? When you're dead? When you're too old to know what's going on? Why wait?" The crowd gasped again. I saw someone gently touch her arm, maybe trying to calm her down, but she shook them off. "You don't even need this house. You hide in your study all day. You're already half gone." Those words would have crushed me once. But not anymore. I wasn't broken, I was just tired. Tired of the fakeness, the guilt trips, the games. So I stood tall, smoothed down my dress, and said, "If you truly believe you deserve something that isn't yours yet, then you'll get exactly what you deserve." I turned and walked away, heels clicking on the marble as people stared and whispered. I didn't look back. I headed to my study, the one place in that house that still felt like mine. As I closed the door behind me, the noise faded. I leaned against the door, breathing slow, trying to steady my hands. The silence was heavy, but peaceful. Outside, the party kept going, laughing, music, clinking glasses, as if nothing had happened. As if my own daughter hadn't just tried to force me to give up everything I built. I walked over to the mirror above the fireplace and stared at my reflection, frosting still stuck in my hair, my cheeks, my pride. But behind those tired eyes, there was still fire. They didn't know who they were messing with. Not yet, the frosting was still on my face. I wiped it off gently with a cool, damp cloth, trying not to look at myself for as long as I could. But eventually, I had to. And there I was, Evelyn Carrington. A widow. The head of the family. Alone. How did we get here? Next to the mirror hung our old family portraits. One of them showed Lily as a teenager in her riding outfit, her father's hand resting proudly on her shoulder. She was always his favorite, his little star. I never minded, back then, she was kind and thankful for everything. But after she married Daniel, everything changed. I never trusted him. I remember how he looked around this house the first time. He visited, not with warmth, but with interest, like a man sizing up something he wanted to own. He seemed more impressed by the marble floors than by Lily. His questions were polite, but always about money, land, value. I saw right through him, but Lily called it drive. She thought he was smart and forward-thinking. Now I see, he wasn't ambitious, he was just calculating. And sadly, he passed that mindset on to her. The kettle started to whistle, pulling me out of my thoughts. I made myself a cup of chamomile tea and sat in my favorite chair. As I sipped, I looked back up at the portraits. My late husband, Robert, stared down at me with kind, steady eyes. What would you say to her now, Robert? What would you do? But the only answer was the ticking of the clock and the sound of distant laughter still echoing from the party. They thought they could shame me last night, trap me with guilt, make me hand over everything I've built with a smile. But I'm not broken. I'm not done. The next morning, the sunroom was already warm when Lily arrived. She stood at the door, dressed in soft pink with no jewelry and her hair loosely tied back. She looked like she was trying to seem gentle, maybe even sorry. I wasn't fooled. "Mother," she said, her voice low, "can we talk?" I pointed silently to the chair across from me. The tea was already made, 2 cups. I knew she'd come. She sat carefully, crossing her legs like she was on stage. Then, right on cue, she began, "I just wanted to say I'm sorry for last night. Things got out of hand. I didn't mean for it to go that far." I didn't answer. Just sipped my tea and let her words sit in the air between us. She fidgeted in the silence, then tried again. "You have to understand, we're just concerned about your health. About how much you're handling all on your own." There it was, the setup. "You've been strong for so long, Mother," she continued, reaching for my hand. I let her take it, though every part of me wanted to pull away. "But maybe it's time to let someone else help. You shouldn't have to carry all this anymore." Her voice was soft, but I could hear Daniel's words behind every sentence. "You're not getting any younger." "And what kind of help did you have in mind?" I asked, watching her closely. She smiled that practiced, polite smile, the one she used when she thought she was being clever. "Well," she said, "Daniel and I have been speaking to some financial advisors. Estate planners. We can manage things for you. Handle the paperwork, the property. Take the pressure off your shoulders." Ah. There it was. The real reason. I leaned back, still holding my teacup. "The property," I repeated. "Yes," she said quickly. "We're not trying to take anything away from you, of course. We just want to make sure it's protected, for the family, for the future. You could finally enjoy life. Travel. Spend time with friends. Relax." She made it sound so casual, like she was doing me a favor. Like I was a child being gently talked into handing over her favorite toy. I smiled, a soft one, just enough to keep her guessing. "That's very thoughtful of you, dear." She looked relieved, like she thought she'd won. But I wasn't finished. "I've managed this house for over 40 years, I said. I think I can manage it a little longer." Her smile faded. Her grip on the teacup tightened. "We're just thinking long-term, Mother," she said. "Daniel knows people who could make things simpler." I set my cup down slowly. "You're very concerned about me, Lily. I appreciate that." She blinked, unsure where this was going. "Let's talk more about it sometime soon," I said lightly. "But not today. I think I need a bit of fresh air." I stood up, and that was that. The conversation was over, for now. But deep down, I knew this wasn't the end. This was just the beginning. It wasn't even noon when I heard it. I'd stepped into the hallway to grab a book from the library. That's when I noticed the door to the downstairs office was slightly open. I wasn't supposed to be home. Or at least, that's what they thought. Their voices drifted quietly down the hall, low, but intense. I stood frozen just outside the office door, the crack barely wide enough to hear, but it was enough. "We need to move faster," Lily whispered. "She's more stubborn than I thought." Daniel's voice came back, sharper, colder. "That's why we need Dr. Stamford involved. If we can get her declared mentally unfit, it's over. No need for her to sign anything. No more delays. It'll be clean." My heart started pounding. But I didn't move. "Not yet." "Will he go along with it?" Lily asked, her voice tight. "Of course," Daniel replied with a chuckle. "We've been paying his clinic for 2 years. He'll write whatever we need." Then came a pause, and Daniel laughed. "The sooner we get that deed, the sooner we sell. With this market, we could walk away with 2 million before the year ends. I'd be completely out of debt." Lily's voice dropped even lower. "And once she's declared incompetent, the court will hand everything over to us. We'll move her into that fancy care home in Virginia. She'll be comfortable. No more arguments." The nerve of them. The way they spoke about me, like I was just an obstacle to clear. I nearly gasped out loud, but I held my breath, my hand gripping the bookshelf to keep steady. Daniel's voice turned colder. "We need the documents ready before she changes her mind again. And until then, keep her thinking we're on her side. Don't spook her." "I can handle her," Lily said, sounding so sure of herself. "She still thinks I care." That line hit hard. Harder than anything else. I backed away from the door slowly, every step careful not to let the floor creak. When I finally reached the end of the hall, I let myself breathe again. My own daughter, trying to have me declared mentally unfit. Just so they could take everything I've built. For years, I told myself Lily was just selfish. That she'd grow out of it. But this wasn't immaturity. This was betrayal. Back in my study, I shut the door quietly behind me and sat at my desk. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from the clarity hitting me like cold air. They had made one big mistake. They thought I was fragile. that I needed protecting. But they had no idea who they were dealing with. The next morning, I didn't waste energy on anger. I didn't scream or cry. I didn't have time for that. I needed a plan. I needed help. And I needed someone I could trust. I picked up the phone and stared at it for a moment before dialing. It had been a while since I'd spoken to Martha, not because we had fallen out, but because she always understood my need for quiet. She picked up on the second ring. "Evelyn, my word, it's been too long." I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. "Martha, do you have time for a private chat?" Her tone changed instantly. "Of course. Are you all right?" I hesitated. "Not quite. I could use your advice." There was a pause, then her voice sharpened. "Where shall we meet?" "Not here," I said quickly, glancing toward the hallway. "Too many years in this house. The little cafe near St. Augustine's?" "Noon," she said. "I'll be there." The cafe was nearly empty when I arrived. Just two old men playing chess in the corner. I took a seat by the window. A few minutes later, Martha walked in, graceful as ever, wearing a gray coat, simple pearls, and eyes that missed nothing. She sat down across from me, folded her hands, and said gently, "Tell me everything." I didn't hold back. I told her about the party. About Lily's visit the next morning. About the conversation I overheard by the office door. Every word. Every plan. Martha didn't interrupt. She just listened, her mouth pressed into a thin, angry line. When I finished, she looked cold. Calculated. "They're not just playing games anymore," I whispered. "They're trying to erase me." She nodded slowly. "And fast. If they've already got a doctor ready to sign off on something like this, you don't have much time." I wrapped my hands around my coffee cup, feeling the warmth calm my nerves. "I need to act before they do." Martha leaned forward. "Then you need proof. Solid, undeniable evidence that they're working together to take away your rights. Quietly. Carefully. The last thing you want is to let them know you're onto them." I met her gaze and nodded. "That's exactly what I was hoping you'd say." Her expression softened for a moment, the old friendship flickering between us. "You've always been strong, Evelyn. But this? This needs more than strength. You need to be smart. Precise." "I'm ready," I said. She exhaled and leaned back, already thinking ahead like the old lawyer she used to be. "You need someone who can get you that evidence. Someone discreet. A private investigator." I gave a small smile. "I might know someone," I said. Martha smiled back, calm and steady. "Good," she replied, "but remember, play the part they expect. Be the sweet, fragile woman they think you are." I nodded, feeling a strange sense of calm. I've been underestimated my whole life. I know how to act like I'm weak. Martha reached over and gently placed her hand on mine. "Then let's make sure they regret ever trying this." Outside, the wind had that cool edge that comes just before fall. And for the first time in weeks, I felt something new: control. 2 days later, I met Mr. Green in a quiet corner of a small hotel lobby. It was private and far enough from town that no one would recognize me. He was just like Martha described, calm, quiet, not flashy. He listened more than he talked, and that made me trust him. He took a sip of his black coffee and looked at the folder I gave him. "Your friend told me a bit," he said, tapping the folder, "but this fills in the blanks." Inside were bank records, strange money transfers Lily made and Daniel's. Failed business ideas that kept losing cash. I looked at him and said, "They want my house. And they're ready to lie and say I'm not mentally fit, whatever it takes." Mr. Green nodded slowly. "Sadly, it's happening more and more. Family sees a chance to grab something, and the courts often believe the older person can't manage anymore." I shook my head. "But I can manage." My voice was sharper than I meant, but he didn't flinch. "That's why I'm here," he said. He pulled a small device from his bag. It looked like a car key, but it was a voice recorder. "Legal in this state," he explained, "as long as you know it's recording." I held it in my hand. It was tiny, nothing special, but it felt powerful. "Use it during any important conversation," he said. "If they talk about the house, money, doctors, anything, keep them talking. Stay calm. The more relaxed you are, the more they'll slip." I asked about the doctor they planned to use against me. "I'll look into him," he said. "There's likely paperwork, payments, referrals, anything that shows a connection with your son-in-law." I looked at him, this stranger quietly building the walls around my defense. It wasn't how I pictured standing up for myself at this stage in life. But here I was. Then I asked the question I had been holding back. "What's all this going to cost?" He gave a small smile, a hint of humor in his voice. "Let's call it a family discount. Your judge friend covered most of it." I let out a slow breath. I wanted to cry, but I kept it together. "Thank you," I said firmly. I won't let them take this house. They won't, he said. Not if you're ready to fight. I left the hotel with the recorder tucked in my purse. My steps felt heavier than usual, not from fear, but from the weight of knowing that everything had changed. The countdown had begun. They thought I would give in. Instead, I was just getting started. A week later, I sent a message through Lily's assistant, just a simple dinner invite at home. Casual, nothing fancy. Of course, they accepted right away. That evening, they showed up smiling, acting overly sweet. Brent brought an expensive bottle of wine like he was offering it to a queen, not someone he was trying to push out. Lily gave me a kiss on the cheek like everything was fine. Mother, you're looking so well, she said, fake as ever. I smiled just as sweetly. Thanks, dear. I'm trying to stay healthy, less stress. Brent chuckled as he set the wine on the table. That's why we keep saying, let us take care of the hard stuff. He couldn't help himself. 5 minutes in and he was already circling the topic. I led them to the dining room where I had cooked all their favorites: roast beef, honey-glazed carrots, fresh bread. The table sparkled under the chandelier. A quiet reminder, I still run this house. Dinner was polite, light. Lily chatted about a vacation, a new designer, some charity event she was hosting. But underneath it all, I could feel it, the act. Like they were trying to keep me calm before the real plan dropped. And sure enough, after dessert, Brent leaned in carefully. So, Mother, have you thought more about those papers we discussed? I set down my fork. My face stayed soft, but inside, I was ready. I placed the napkin gently in my lap and gave a soft nod. Yes, dear. I have, I said, letting my voice tremble just a little, enough to sound unsure. You're both so thoughtful, it's honestly a little overwhelming. I don't even know where to begin with all that legal stuff. Brent leaned in, clearly thinking he was about to win. His eyes lit up like a kid spotting candy. That's why we're here, he said, soothing. We'll walk you through everything. You won't have to worry about a thing. Lily jumped in, squeezing my hand with fake warmth. We just want you to enjoy life, Mom. No stress. No responsibilities. I lowered my eyes, blinking like I was trying not to cry. You're right. I guess it's only a matter of time before I start forgetting things. Just like your father did at the end. The tiny flicker of satisfaction that crossed Brent's face made my stomach turn. They actually believed I was giving in. I reached out and touched Lily's arm gently. But let's not rush, sweetheart. I'd like to take my time and go over everything before I sign anything. You know how your father always said to be thorough. Brent kept smiling, but I saw the little twitch in his jaw. He was annoyed. Of course, he said tightly. Take all the time you need. We'll have our lawyer send over the first drafts, Lily added quickly. We'll make it really easy. Nothing confusing. I gave them a warm smile like I was touched. That's very kind of you. We ended the night with coffee and small talk. I packed up some pastries for them to take home, playing the sweet, doting mother role to the very end. I stood at the door and watched as they walked to their car, Brent's arm around Lily's waist like they'd just sealed the deal. I didn't drop the act until their taillights disappeared down the driveway. Then my smile faded, and my face hardened. They had seen exactly what they wanted to see, a tired, aging woman ready to hand over everything. But they had no idea what was coming next. And that made me dangerous. 3 days later, a letter showed up at my door. Hand-delivered by courier. Thick, heavy envelope. It even had one of those fancy law firm logos embossed on the front, some office I'd never heard of. Probably one of Daniel's shady connections. I opened it slowly, even though my hands wanted to shake. Inside was a full stack of legal papers, property transfer forms, power of attorney documents, and other official-looking agreements. Everything was neat, clean, and ready to go. All they needed was my signature. And there it was, Lily's signature already on the dotted line. Daniel's, too. The only empty space was mine. A cold feeling crept through my chest. They weren't just hoping I'd say yes, they were planning to act like I already had. The nerve of it. They were getting ready to take this to court, wave those papers around, and say I'd agreed. That I was confused. That I had handed them everything. I stared at the documents for a long time, letting it all sink in. This wasn't just about money. This was cold, calculated, and cruel. They were trying to legally steal from me, and they were dressing it up to look like love and concern. I set the papers aside and grabbed my phone. Martha picked up before the second ring. It's getting worse, I said, my voice calm but sharp. Tell me, she said. I explained everything, the letter, the signatures, the blank space waiting for mine. She didn't speak right away. When she did, her voice was tight with anger. They've already signed for you, she asked. Yes. That's forgery, she said flatly. If they try to use those papers without your permission, it's a crime. They know that, I said. That's why they're pushing me so hard to go along before they make their move. Martha let out a sharp breath. Good. Let them keep pushing. Don't confront them yet. The more pressure they apply, the more useful your recordings will be. And if they get desperate and jump the gun, even better for us. I closed my eyes, breathing in her calm confidence. Her words lit a quiet fire inside me again. They're arrogant, Evelyn, she said. And that's what will undo them. I opened my eyes, steady and sure. Then let's make sure that happens. The next afternoon, Martha came over. We sat in the sunroom, far from anyone who might be listening in, just in case my clever daughter had planted anything. She wore her glasses low on her nose and flipped through the fat packet of legal papers. Her movements were slow, precise, and quiet. The only sound in the room was the soft crinkle of pages turning as she got ready for the fight. The soft ticking of the old clock filled the room. When Martha finished reading the documents, she set them down and folded her hands. They're moving faster than I thought, she said quietly. I gave a small nod. They think I'm ready to give up. Martha pressed her lips together. There are holes in their case, Evelyn, enough to challenge it in court. But right now, this isn't just about the law. It's about timing. They're counting on you being scared, too overwhelmed to ask questions. They're counting on me being weak, I said, keeping my voice calm. And I've let them believe that. Martha gave a slight smile. Good. You've given them rope. And the more they pull, the tighter it gets when we yank back. I poured her a cup of tea with steady hands and a steady voice. Do you think they suspect anything? She shook her head. Not yet. If anything, they probably think your caution is just part of getting older. Hesitation. Confusion. They're waiting on that doctor to sign off and declare you unfit. Once that happens, they'll try to take everything in one clean sweep. And when that moment comes? I asked. Can we stop them? Her eyes sharpened. We're not going to wait for that. We'll stop them before it ever gets that far. That's why Mr. Green's work is so important. If we gather recordings, financial records, proof that they've been pressuring you, we won't just block them, we'll destroy their entire case. Her confidence steadied me. I'd spent years handling this estate on my own, but legal battles weren't my strength. That's why I called Martha. That's why I trusted her. She leaned in a little. Evelyn, you need to keep playing the part. The more they believe you're giving in, the more careless they'll become. Don't say no to anything directly. Just stall. Act unsure. Let them feel in control. I smiled softly. You really enjoy this, don't you? Martha chuckled. I spent 30 years watching people like your daughter walk into court thinking they could outsmart the law. Entitled people always get sloppy. I stirred my tea slowly, then asked in an ear whisper, when did she stop seeing me as her mother, Martha? When did I become just a hurdle in her way? Martha reached over and took my hand. You stopped feeding her hunger, Evelyn. And people like Lily? They don't love anyone who tells them no. I swallowed hard but didn't look away. Then, let's make sure the next no is the last one they ever hear. She gave my hand a gentle squeeze. It will be. I promise you that. For the next week, I played my part perfectly. I was the sweet, confused old woman. The grateful mother who didn't understand the paperwork but trusted her children. I let them visit often, let them give their little speeches full of fake concern and soft voices. One afternoon, we sat on the veranda. A warm breeze fluttered the edges of the lace tablecloth. The house, my house, shone behind them. I smiled calmly as I watched them spin their little web, thinking they had me trapped. Lily poured me tea, as she always did now. Like serving me made her seem more loving. Mother, are you sure you don't want to sign before things get too complicated? She asked sweetly. You know, while you're still feeling clear-headed. Daniel added his part right on cue. It would save everyone a lot of trouble down the line. Courts make things messy. I took a slow sip of tea and kept my tone light. Of course, dear. But I'd like to speak with my financial advisor first. Just to be safe. Something flickered in Daniel's eyes, he didn't like that. But he still thought he had the upper hand. Oh, of course, Lily. Jumped in quickly. Take your time, Mother. We just want what's best for you. They didn't know it, but the tiny recorder hidden behind my chair was catching every word. That's what they wanted, urgency. Pressure. To make me feel like time was running out. That's why they kept visiting, checking in, dropping little hints about my memory, my health, my future. Always smiling. Always acting like they cared. Each time they did it, each time they let their true intentions slip, they gave me more proof. Once, I even acted confused on purpose, pretending I couldn't remember which document they'd shown me last. Lily jumped in with help, while Daniel corrected me like I was a lost child. Every moment of it, recorded. Every patronizing smile. Every veiled threat hidden behind gentle concern. The game was clear now. Let them think they're winning. Let them feel just close enough to victory. Because the longer they play, the harder it will hit when the trap finally snaps shut. That night, after Lily left and the house went quiet again, I couldn't sleep. The silence felt heavy, like it was holding something in. I walked to the library, where the fire still crackled softly. Shadows danced on the walls as I stood in front of the tall bookcase, running my fingers over the old books until I found them, Robert's journals. 3 thick books with worn leather covers, carefully kept just the way he left them. He had written in them regularly, right up until the last few months of his life. I took them to the reading chair, sat down, and opened the first one. His handwriting was just as I remembered, neat and steady. One entry stopped me cold. March 17th, Lily's ambition worries me. She's smart, yes, but too easily impressed by money. Brent feeds into it, always telling her she deserves more. I'm scared of where that thinking will lead once I'm gone. I read it again, the words sinking in like cold rain. Robert had seen all of this coming, long before I did. Another page read, June 2nd, I need to talk to Evelyn again about protecting the house legally. It's in both our names, but I don't trust what Brent might try later. Evelyn always believes family will choose love over greed. I hope she's right, but I have to prepare as if she's not. I closed my eyes, heart aching. He had tried to warn me. I kept flipping through the pages, watching the dates inch closer to the year he died. His writing got messier near the end, but his worries stayed the same. December 4th, if Evelyn ever stands alone, I hope she remembers, quiet doesn't mean weak. Calm doesn't mean powerless. Patience wins wars. That line hit me hard. I ran my hand gently over the page, like I was touching him one last time. I had been patient for years, for Lily, for peace. But that peace had turned into something bitter, like poison. And now, for the first time in a long while, something stronger stirred inside me. It wasn't anger. It was resolve. I wasn't afraid of losing the house. I was tired of losing me. At the back of the journal, Robert had left one final message. Just a scribbled note, like a goodbye. If they ever try to take what we built, don't beg. Don't plead. Show them who you are. I took a deep breath. My hands stopped shaking. My head was clear. They thought I was weak. That age had worn me down. But they never knew where my real strength lived. Robert did. I stood up, put the journals back, smoothed my blouse, and whispered, "Thank you, my love. Now I know what I have to do." The fight wasn't coming anymore. It was here. 2 days later, Mr. Green called. "Mrs. Hawthorne," he said, his voice calm but serious. "You'll want to hear what I found." We met again at the Carlton Hotel, same booth, soft music in the background. This time, I didn't bring tea or small talk, just my focus. He slid a folder across the table. "Your son-in-law's situation," he said, "is worse than you think." I opened the folder. Everything was there, bank statements, loan papers, real estate deals. And one word jumped off every page, desperate. "The Ridgeview project?" I asked. He nodded. "It's bleeding. Money. Brent borrowed against everything they have. Not just from banks, but private lenders too. High-interest ones. The kind who don't wait nicely." My stomach twisted as I read. If Ridgeview fell apart, they'd lose it all, their house, their cars, their savings. And the only thing left to grab? My estate. "Exactly," he said. "That's why Brent's pushing Lily so hard. If they can get your house in their name before everything crashes, they'll sell it fast for cash. They're not protecting you, Mrs. Hawthorne. They're trying to save themselves." I closed the folder slowly, letting it all sink in. Then he added something that made my blood run cold. "They already found a buyer. A developer who wants to tear the house down and turn the land into a bunch of small plots. The papers are ready to go, as soon as your name's off the deed." I stared at him, my heart pounding. Not just my house, our home. This was the house Robert built with his own 2 hands. Every corner, every brick, he had touched it. He planted the gardens. Himself. Designed the library where I spent quiet afternoons. And now, they wanted to destroy it. Tear it down and sell the land to the highest bidder. All that love and work, gone for profit. The thought stung, but underneath the hurt, something sharp and steady took its place, clarity. "They're rushing. Because they're scared," I said quietly. "They know time's running out." "Desperation always leads to mistakes," Mr. Green replied. "And you're letting them make just enough of them to hang themselves with." I looked him straight in the eyes. "I want every piece of this recorded. Every call. Every meeting. I want a file so solid it'll crush them the moment they try to declare me unfit." "You'll have it," he promised. "My team is already tracking Brent's money moves. We're also recording conversations with his partners. He's getting careless." I gave a small, bitter smile. "And Lily? Still acting like the sweet, loving daughter." But I can see it, she's losing her patience. Brent's panic is rubbing off on her. She's slipping too. I leaned back, already thinking through the next steps. So we wait. Let them keep pushing. Mr. Green nodded. Exactly. The closer they think they are to winning, the more reckless they'll get. We stood up to leave, each going our separate way. Outside, the autumn air was cool and crisp. I breathed it in deeply. The wind felt different, stronger, colder, but I stood taller than I had in years. For so long, I'd been the quiet, gentle mother. The one they thought would give in eventually. But I wasn't giving in. I was watching. Waiting. And soon, they'd learn the difference. The night I made my move, there was no big scene. No shouting. Just calm, clear steps. I sat in Martha's private office, papers spread across the heavy oak desk. The room smelled like old books and polished wood. A notary sat beside me, flipping through each page slowly and carefully. Martha stood behind me, solid and calm like always. This setup is rock solid, she said. Once this is filed, they can't touch anything, not a single brick. I nodded. Just like we planned. We were finalizing the Langley family. Irrevocable trust. Every piece, my house, the land, even my investments, was now locked up tight, beyond Lily and Brent's reach. This wasn't just about protecting the house. It was about protecting everything Robert and I had built. It was about never letting anyone mistake my quiet for weakness again. The notary handed me the final page. Signature here, Mrs. Hawthorne. I didn't hesitate. My hand didn't shake. I signed it clearly, Evelyn Margaret Hawthorne. He stamped the papers with a soft click and passed them to Martha, who slid them into a thick leather folder like sealing a vault. It's done, she said. From this moment, you're the only trustee. No one else can touch a thing unless you say so. I let out a slow breath. Years of fear and pressure left with it. No court can change this? I asked. Not unless they prove fraud, force, or that you've lost your mind, she said gently. And thanks to the smart way you've been handling things, your notes, our recordings, the witnesses, there's no way they can. I smiled a little. They thought I was getting weaker. But every time I nodded along with their plans, I was just making sure the walls closed in tighter around them. Martha smiled back, proud. Honestly, Evelyn, you've played this better than most lawyers I know. It wasn't a game, I said softly. It was my home. She tapped the folder. Now we wait. The moment they file for guardianship, we'll hit back with everything. And Brent's shady financial deals? They'll do far more damage to them than any lie they tell about your health. The notary left quietly, and we sat alone in the quiet room. I leaned back in the chair and let it all settle in. For months, I had let them talk down to me. Pretend to care. Pat my hand with fake smiles. They thought I was broken. That the house was already theirs. But they were wrong. Not only would they never get this house, they were about to be exposed for what they really were. I looked at Martha, calm and focused as always. Let's see how brave they are when the court papers land, I said softly. Her eyes sparkled. Oh, they'll come running. And they'll never see it coming. Outside, the wind rattled the leaves against the tall iron gates. Inside, I finally felt safe. Ready. Unbreakable. Once the estate was sealed and fully protected, something inside me settled. For the first time in years, I felt untouchable. No more worrying. No more second-guessing. I decided to invite Lily and Brent over one last time. No more pretending. No sweet tea, no gentle chats. Just a simple request, I'd like to go over the documents together before signing anything. Please bring Brent. They showed up right on time, just like I knew they would. Too eager. Too confident. Lily walked in with that same perfect smile she wore at the party. The one that used to make me doubt myself. But not tonight. Brent stood beside her, calm and sure, like he thought he already had this all wrapped up. We met in the parlor. The fire behind me crackled warmly while they sat across from me at the coffee table. What they didn't know was that the real trust papers, the ones that made everything they wanted impossible, were locked safely in my study down the hall. Lily smiled sweetly. Mother, you look lovely tonight. Ready to go over the paperwork? I smiled back, warm but steady. Actually, I said, I thought we'd go over something else first. Brent frowned. Something else? I reached beside me and placed a small black recorder on the table. You might remember this, I said, pressing play. Their voices filled the room, clear as day. The secret conversation from the garden. It played out just as I remembered. If we wait, we risk her finding other counsel. Dr. Alden is willing to do the evaluation. Once she's deemed unfit, we gain full legal control. Fine. Set it up. Lily's face went pale. Brent's jaw clenched. I let the recording play for just a few more seconds, then clicked it off. The silence afterward felt thick enough to touch. I've been a lot of things to you both, I said gently. A mother. A safety net. Maybe even a fool. But one thing I've never been is helpless. Lily spoke first, her voice tight and shaky. Mother, that recording, it's out of context, legally recorded, I cut in my own home. Brent tried to recover. You don't understand, we were only trying to protect the family estate. No, I said calmly. You were trying to protect yourselves. Ridgeview is falling apart. Your lenders are closing. You looked at me, and this house, as your last way out. Lily shook her head, her voice breaking. You don't know what you're talking about. I leaned forward, my voice kind but firm. I know everything. About the private loans. The hidden accounts. The buyer lined up to take this house the moment I was out of the picture. You've been very busy behind my back. They went silent. I let them sit in it. As of last week, I continued, this entire estate is in a protected trust. An irrevocable trust. You have no claim. No backdoor. No inheritance. Brent cracked first. His calm mask slipped, and I saw the anger bubbling underneath. You can't do that. You're not competent? I finished for him, looking him dead in the eye. That was your plan, wasn't it? Get a doctor to lie. Declare me unfit so you could take control. I lowered my voice. You were very wrong. That's when Lily broke. The tears came fast. Her voice shook with panic. Please, Mother. We didn't mean to hurt you. We thought. I shook my head slowly. No, Lily. You thought I was weak. And now I see exactly who you are. The room grew still again. The fire popped behind me. The air felt heavy. But I wasn't afraid anymore. I watched Lily cry, watched Brent start to do the math in his head, trying to find a way out of a trap that had already snapped shut. And then, softly, I added the final blow. I've already reported everything to the authorities. Brent's head snapped up. His voice cracked. What? Lily's face twisted in horror. You called the police? I looked at them both, not angry anymore, just calm. Sure of myself in a way I hadn't been in years. Yes, I said softly. I gave them the recordings. The financial documents. Everything Mr. Green collected. What you did wasn't just manipulative, it was fraud. You tried to declare me incompetent to take my money. That's elder abuse. And it's a crime. Brent jumped to his feet, pacing like a trapped animal. You don't understand what you've done. No, Brent, I said evenly. For the first time, I understand exactly what I'm doing. That's when the sharp knock came at the front door, cutting through the room like a blade. Brent and Lily froze the moment they saw the blade. Then came another knock, louder this time. Maria, who had been waiting in the hallway, opened the door. Two uniformed officers walked in, followed by a plainclothes detective who looked calm and professional. Mrs. Hawthorne, the detective asked kindly. We're here about the complaint you filed. I stood up, my hands steady. Yes, detective. They're right here, I said, pointing to Brent and Lily. Brent's face turned pale. You can't be serious, he stammered. You're not having us arrested over this. But the detective had already stepped forward. His voice was firm. But quiet. Mr. Anderson, you're being detained for questioning. You're suspected of fraud, trying to take advantage of someone financially, and working together to abuse an elderly person. As one officer began reading him his rights, Brent panicked. You can't prove anything. She's twisting the truth. The detective calmly picked up the recorder from the table. We've got hours of your own voice. That'll be enough. Lily broke down completely. She dropped to her knees next to my chair, grabbing my hand. Please, Mom. Don't do this. I didn't mean for it to get this bad. I was scared. Brent pushed me into it. I looked down at her, not pulling my hand away, but I didn't comfort her either. You had a choice, Lily. You had plenty of chances to stop. But you didn't. Tears streamed down her face as the officers gently pulled her to her feet and put handcuffs on her. Outside, neighbors were already gathering at the end of the driveway. Some peeked out from windows, others whispered and filmed everything on their phones. The detective turned back to me. We'll keep you updated, Mrs. Hawthorne. Your lawyer will get all the statements. Thank you, detective, I said calmly. They led Brent and Lily outside, Brent still shouting, Lily crying uncontrollably. I stood still, my hands folded, breathing in the cool evening air drifting through the open front door. For years, they circled this house like vultures. But tonight, their own greed did them in. The flashing blue police lights lit up my front lawn in cold, steady pulses. I stood at the top of the steps, watching it all with a strange, quiet peace. Just like I expected, the neighbors came out fast. Mr. and Mrs. Dalton whispered near their gate. The Whitakers stood by their mailbox, their teenage son filming it all. The Ridley twins leaned off their balcony, eyes wide. This wasn't just gossip. This was full-on scandal. The perfect daughter and her charming husband, dragged out of the same estate they used to brag about inheriting. This was juicier than anything the neighborhood book club ever read. Brent's voice rang out as they put him in the police car. This is a mistake. It's all lies. You'll regret this. But his voice sounded smaller now. Weak. Lily could barely stay on her feet as they guided her into the second car. Her mascara was running down her cheeks, staining the fancy white blouse she probably wore, thinking tonight would go her way. I stayed where I was, tall and still, hands folded, as if I were greeting guests at a garden party instead of watching my family fall apart. Maria came quietly to my side. Do you want me to close the door, ma'am? She asked. Not yet, I said. Let them see. She nodded, understanding without needing more words. I had stayed quiet for years, and people mistook that for weakness. Tonight, everyone could see just how wrong they'd been. The detective came back as the cars pulled away. We'll keep you informed, Mrs. Hawthorne. Their financial records are deep, it might take a while. I've got nothing but time, I told him gently. He gave me a respectful nod and left. The gate closed behind them with a low, heavy sound, locking the estate again. The neighbors slowly drifted away, but I knew they'd talk about this for months. Let them. I didn't care. I turned to Maria. Now you can close the door. She shut it softly, locking it with a quiet click. The house seemed to breathe out, settling back into peace. No more fake visits. No more pretend kindness. No more sneaky tricks dressed up as love. For the first time in years, this house felt like mine again, completely mine. I walked back to the parlor and sat where Lily had knelt just an hour ago. My teacup was still there, untouched. I took a sip now, enjoying its warmth. It didn't feel like victory. It didn't even feel like revenge. It felt like something quieter. Freedom.